right. Hey, this is Deyoung from the Grand Haven Tribune. I'm here with
Alex Sinn.
And this is Three-Eyed Haven, Grand Haven Tribune's Game of Thrones podcast. So obviously Game of Thrones is a huge phenomenon here as we get into Season 8. And we just decided we'd take a quick look at some of the past episodes or the previous episodes, look a bit ahead to what we think might happen. We will come out with one of these podcasts each week following each of the episodes this season and give our take on what's happening and where we think things are going to go from here.
Yeah, so I guess we can start with like our history with watching the show.
Perfect. So I'm one of the few people I think who actually read the books first. So I had watched one or two episodes of season 1. I kind of liked it, but it was a bit confusing with all the characters. So I jumped into the books, read them all, not realizing that there were that many books in the series and that many books yet to come. So I read all the books. I've now watched every episode of every series at least 2 or 3 times. Am I obsessed? I won't go that far, but I really enjoy it. And I think
you might, though.
The more you watch it, the more intricacies, the more little details you pick up. Like the more characters from season 1 you see, and you're like, oh, I didn't realize that's who that was. So the deeper into it you get, I think the more I enjoy it.
It's an investment, but it's a rewarding investment. I think I started watching around season 5. I was convinced by family members to start watching this right now, and I think we watched the first season and then binged through 4 in the matter of a few weeks, and started I think on 5, and I've watched it since then. I've read like a portion of the first book, which is really close, I think, to the show, and then obviously the books and the show branch, I believe, around 6 or 7. Seasons, and the books by George R.R. Martin are not completed. It's uncertain whether he will ever get around to it.
I'll go on record as saying I don't think he's ever going to finish these books. I think having given up the story, I don't know if he's ever going to get back to it.
It's funny because he runs a blog and he writes ad nauseum about this and that and everything else. He's got another show he's working on. He's exhaustively working, and yet we don't know what's happening to the next book. So, yeah, too bad for fans, but we'll see. I think it's pretty certain he's probably going to go a different direction from the show. So the showrunners have, I believe, an idea of which characters remain at the very end and kind of where all the chips fall. These past few seasons have been very huge and explosive in terms of lots of big action set pieces. It's all kind of been set up. So I guess we can talk about just where the season has come to get to season 8.
Sure. So I think it's been really interesting because having read all the books, I was really excited to see what would happen because, the first several seasons, I knew what was coming. Maybe not for sure, maybe not how they'd do it, maybe not how it would come along, but I knew the Red Wedding was happening. I knew something was going to go on with Jon Snow. Some of these things are going. Certain things were hinted at, but then it was super exciting to get into where, all right, I have no idea what's coming in these next couple seasons because, I can't imagine. I mean, it'd be like Lord of the Rings, Tolkien, giving away what's going to happen at the end of Return of the King. He's not going to do it in a movie. He's going to want to, make sure that he tells that final story the way he wants to tell it. I can't imagine George R.R. Martin gave away every detail of how he wants to finish it. And I do think, some of the earlier seasons were a little bit more slow in that the books are so deep into character development and relationships and different things. And I think the series followed that a little bit. And as it's gotten beyond his direct influence and where they've had to kind of get creative on their own, we have seen a little bit more big battles and, a little more grandeur. And, this past season, a lot of people complained about how quickly things seem to move. Like the episode, the second to last episode where Jon and several of his friends are stranded on the ice surrounded by White Walkers, and they somehow have someone run back to the wall, fly a raven back to Daenerys, who flies up and rescues them in time. I mean, a lot of people...
and that pacing is increasing, too, whereas things used to really linger. I mean, it would take someone forever to get somewhere on a horse, multiple episodes, and now they're just sort of flying across the land.
Or even you think of Arya and the Hound, I mean, an entire season of them just wandering back and forth across Westeros. So, but I think that's why this first episode of Season 8 was really kind of cool because it didn't have that. It was more like the pace slowed down a little bit. Nothing really significant happened. It was just kind of setting the pieces back up for, where we are, where we left off almost 2 years ago, and what we're going to do here in these final 5 episodes.
Right, and I feel like so much of the show is just talking scenes. You just have these really long conversations between characters, and it's very political, which I think really adds the payoff when you do get something that's just a fire-breathing dragon destroying an entire army. Like that, that payoff is extraordinary. Yeah, getting to this episode, it's I mean, it's really, this is kind of your setup, okay? And with the end of season 7, you really felt like, okay, the pieces are where they need to be on the board. You've got a king and a queen in the north. You've got a queen in the stronghold of the south. And you've got the White Walkers across the wall.
Yeah.
And so now this is very much finale territory at this point. I think we're going to see lots of those big set pieces, but I mean, it's really my hope that we see some closure on some characters, because that's really what this story is built around, is the characters.
Well, I really think, looking at it too, if this season was all just battling White Walkers for 7 episodes or 6 episodes, excuse me, it'd be kind of boring, right? It'd lose kind of what the show's all about. So I really do think we're set up for some pretty serious conflict between some characters. I mean, obviously Cersei and the Lannister army is not coming north, so there's that going on. Jumping ahead a little bit, Jon finds out his parentage, and how's that going to play with Daenerys, and their relationship is really interesting going forward, how that's going to play out. It's just so fun to see all these different characters meeting back up, Arya and the Hound. This season ended, again, jumping ahead a little bit, with Jaime Lannister and Bran. I mean, what's going to happen with all these different characters? It's going to be really awesome to see, how these relationships come together, how these people play off each other going forward, with the overall point being the army of the dead is coming to kill us
They're
all.
coming,
What
yeah.
are we going to do about it?
Essentially, the climate is changing.
Yes.
You have all of these different armies and really all this like sectarian violence going on among all these different tribes of people, and yet really the winters is here, and there's really nothing you can do about it. So that's what's happening. But I do think, though, that Jon is really our centerpiece in terms of the question of his identity is center stage. Who is he? What is he supposed to be doing? What is he meant to do? And that, in this first episode, you really get a sense that he's being torn between various allegiances and loyalties, and it seems like he's trying to be guided by, like, what's the right thing to do, for my people, but for the world at large, which is a very kingly thing to do.
Yeah.
And so that's really the intrigue for me.
And poor Jon, he's dealt with this all along, right? I mean, from the very first, season, when
Opening moments.
Yeah, when it's clear that as the bastard, he's not really welcome. Catelyn Stark can't stand him, and he's constantly been battling things. I mean, he gets elected the Lord Commander of the Night Watch, and he gets assassinated basically because he's trying to do what he thinks is right. But he seems he's always trying to be noble. He's always trying to follow that example that his quote unquote father, Ned Stark, would have led. But it doesn't seem to work out all that well for him in different situations. So it's really curious to see if how he handles this information, how he moves forward now knowing what he knows.
This is a dude that's been stabbed to death in mutiny and left to bleed out for dead, and has come back to life. So, yeah, he carries a lot. I went back and watched rewatched the very first episode of season 1, and you had brought this up when we were talking about it before. Some of the parallels. So, in the structure of this episode, you have the opening paralleling the very first episode of the show with season 8's opener. You have like Arya trying to climb up, I don't know, a tree or something to...
Yeah, I think she climbs a wagon with a helmet too big for her, watching as Robert Baratheon brings his army, or not really his army, but his entourage to the north to come up and visit Winterfell.
And then you would just have this, unnamed child, but the latest season opens with a child climbing up a tree to see this, just massive sprawling army with Daenerys and Jon Snow just riding in, so majestic, and and so there's really drawing that parallel. But you're like, oh, this is big, way bigger than it's been.
Yeah.
In terms of probably just the people that they had to bring in off the street to wear the armor and march. I mean, it's a spectacle. And then to jump really toward the end of the episode, though, you had mentioned that parallel between they described as the body parts on the wall with the boy who's a White Walker.
Ned Karstark, like, right, pinned up to the wall with the arms and leg pieces spun around him, and
kind of a symbol.
Yeah.
And then he like screams, and it like lights on fire, right?
Yes.
And then in that very first episode of the show, in the cold open of the entire series, is that those body parts strewn in kind of a symbol that I don't think is the same symbol, but it's just we've seen that before. And so
yeah, the entire season starts out, right? You forget it until you go back and watch. The season starts with like the gate opening under the wall and the Night's Watch going out,
Dudes.
excuse me. Yes. And they ride out and they're going out to find these wildlings, and they find the camp, and the one guy sneaks up and looks down and he sees the body parts in a kind of a weird symbol. He doesn't really describe what it is, and then he turns around and sees a little girl in the tree looking at them, and then they go back and they're gone. But then the other two guys get their heads chopped off by the Night King or whoever it is. It doesn't really tell you if that's who it is, but and then the one who survives is the one who then Ned Stark beheads, and that's the first vision we get of the Starks. I did look it up, and there actually is another spot where you do see that exact same symbol, kind of I don't know if it's not really a starburst, but kind of the symbol that you see on the wall here. I think it was in season 4. There were some horse parts that they found, like the White Walkers had killed a bunch of horses and made that symbol in the snow.
Okay.
And they showed it. So there is a bit of...
And you forget big moments like that because the show's so big.
Yes.
I don't know if you're familiar with like the ring theory from Harry Potter. So there's this idea with the Harry Potter series, the 7-book series, that J.K. Rowling structured it in a way that it kind of, the plot takes kind of a ring structure. So like book 1 corresponds with 7, 2 with 6, and you have, people have delved into this to the tiny details of like, it's raining in this chapter and raining in that chapter.
Interesting.
And obviously that, I'm not sure that I necessarily see that with the show, but it is interesting that there is some circular structure to the overall story, that it hopefully will be a very cohesive whole. And that's what I'm thinking will happen, that we will get a whole story, which doesn't often enough happen with television shows. I think, especially on some networks, cancellations happen all the time, and writers aren't able to finish their stories or have to rush them together. But I'm grateful that they did take the time ultimately to make this a complete story. I guess my only concern is that if they do decide to do this just for the sake of spectacle, just to make it endless long battles, like that will be fun. But I hope that they've added in that time to really close out some stories and to really polish the script and make sure that we get some finality.
You'd certainly hope so. And you look at one, to me, that was a little bit underwhelming, was Littlefinger. Like, he was such a key player throughout everything. Like, when you look back at it, he kind of started this all. Like, right, when you look back how he was involved in Lysa Arryn poisoning her husband and whatnot, and everything that he's been involved in through Ned Stark in the Capitol in the first season. He was so involved in all of this, and you never really quite, unless I missed it, figure out why. Like, what's his reasoning? Obviously he wants power, he wants money. Obviously he's trying to put people, it's the Game of Thrones. He's trying to put the pieces in place where he wants them. And the way he went down, thanks to Arya's Valyrian steel dagger at the end of this past season, was a crazy scene. But I almost felt like his story wasn't quite, like, I didn't quite feel like I had everything I needed from him. Like, it seemed like there was more to him than what we got. But you're right, there are a lot of characters. There's just so many characters. You've got Beric Dondarrion, who's, you kind of forgot about him. He was the one that Ned Stark sent out to capture the mountain in the first season.
You really need a chart on your wall.
You had no idea who he was, and then you go back and it's like, oh, that's who that was. And Gendry, what's Gendry's story? Like, he was gone, and now all of a sudden he's back. And of course, there's got to be something to do with King's blood. How's he going to come into play? You got Jaime Lannister and Cersei Lannister. How is their relationship going to go? And with Tyrion, is Cersei really pregnant? That's another theory that's going on right now, because she was drinking wine in this last episode. So maybe she doesn't care, but she had turned down wine previously, and that's how Jaime figured out she was pregnant. So there's just so many storylines that are brewing here, and there's just so many things taking on. What's going to go on with Yara Greyjoy? She went back to the Iron Islands. Does that mean that she's done? She's out? Like that was just her escape to get out, so we don't have to worry about her anymore. What's Theon going to do when he comes back? Because obviously everyone in the North hates Theon. Is he going to come back and be a central figure in all of this? Because he's another one that's been through it all. I mean, he started in the very first episode. He's been there all along the way. So just so many characters with so much baggage that they continue to come forward. And where are we going to go with them all? I mean, we've got how many episodes left now to wrap this up? I mean, not a lot of time.
Just 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should talk about kind of the big central cinematic moment of this first episode was the dragon ride scene between Daenerys and Jon, where they kind of take off on the dragons, a little bit of humor, and then they have this love story going on here too, which is definitely going to complicate the fact that they are two of the biggest political leaders in this world. And honestly, I don't really know how I felt about the scene. Like, clearly they were just, in terms of the just the visuals of it, like they were just kind of pulling out all the stops and saying, "Look at our dragons now." like you've seen the eggs, we had the eggs, and here's what we've created with CGI.
Well, what's really interesting, and this goes back to even that opening scene we talked about, is how much grander their budget clearly is at this point. Because I've listened to and taught or read some different things about it, and they said basically in the first season when King Robert comes to the North with his group, it's much smaller. I mean, they weren't able to do nearly what they wanted to. They said now they've actually got the budget. Now that this show is a worldwide phenomenon, one of the most popular things going, they've got the money to do what they want. So they were able to do that incredible scene of the Unsullied marching away into the distance as they come into Winterfell, and they were able to do this incredible scene of them flying on the dragons with their not even scales, kind of their spikes like rippling as they fly. I mean, just incredible detail and beautiful scenery. I mean, that's one thing about this show. It kind of harkens back to Lord of the Rings too, is just where they shot at the locations, the scenery, it's just incredible. It's beautiful. It's inspiring just to watch and be like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. I want to go visit where they shot these scenes because it's so cool.
I was watching The Return of the King on Blu-ray a few weeks ago. Massive battles where you've got this sweeping camera that's just showing you all this chaotic battling going on, by the thousands, and that sense of scale was pretty much unprecedented. But now, I mean, nothing close to that had ever been done on television until now. But that's really what Game of Thrones is. It's unprecedented in a lot of ways, and I mean, for it to be such a visual spectacle, but the storytelling to be so intricate and careful, it really can only be done in television with that complex of a story.
Yeah. But to go back to that part, when they get on the dragon, I mean, clearly in the previous season, Jon had reached out and kind of touched the dragon. You could see Daenerys kind of look down and see, how's this going to go? Because clearly these things are incredible creatures, and you're not going to want to reach your hand out. But I mean, that scene where he's putting his hand out, you see the layers of teeth under his lips and stuff, and it's creepy. It's like that thing would devour you in a moment. Kind of like, well, what do dragons eat? Whatever they want. That was one of the great lines of this episode. Right. But when Jon climbs up, I was a little surprised that Daenerys was so cool with it. She didn't seem to be I don't know if he'll let you or anything. She was just oh, hop on and go.
And the reason that he can ride a dragon like that is
clearly
his lineage.
Yeah, you would assume, right? That's what all signs point to, I think, because I mean, Tyrion's the only other one that was able to get even kind of close to the dragons. And when you go back, I think it was season 5 maybe, where they were chained in the pits back in, was it Marine? Or I lose track of some of those cities across the seas. But they were all chained up, and he went and undid their neck collars because they were dying or whatever it was. They weren't doing well.
Yeah, they haven't always been the healthiest dragons.
No, so he went and did that, and he's he walks up and tells Varys, if I ever try to do something this stupid again, punch me in the face. One of my favorite lines ever. But, I mean, so Tyrion's gotten close to them, but not many other people have survived an up-close look at a dragon's face like that, right? Let alone try to climb on his back, but there is kind of that scene where it's almost like the thing, throws his leg up and tosses him up onto his back. It's kind of funny actually, but yeah, the one other thing that I really thought when I was watching this, and this is terrible, but as I'm watching like Jon flying down on the dragon, I'm like, I think they're setting us up for an amusement park ride.
You could see it,
or something. Yeah,
it could happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think any other characters we want to touch on. Obviously, I think Sansa. I think she's kind of bound to run the North. Like I think she really fits into that role really well. She's very loyal to Winterfell, and that's something that her character has arced toward. That she's really grown into that role in recent seasons and has defended her home, and now even is coming to blows with Jon over that. So I think she'll be interesting to watch.
She's clearly coming to her own because Sansa was all the way through, the pretty face who was, just wanted to marry a prince and become a queen and have little babies. And, that was kind of her story starting off. And, even when she was under control of the Lannisters, oh, I love my lord husband no matter what, saying whatever anyone else wanted to hear. Well, now this episode, she had one of the great lines of the episode when Tyrion comes and talks to her and basically says something, and she mentions that the Lannister troops are coming north, and she says, Cersei told you that and you believe her? She's like, I used to think you were the cleverest person in the kingdom. And he looks at her, he's like, oh snap, maybe you're right, because Tyrion always was the smart guy who always was a step or two ahead, and all of a sudden here's meek little Sansa throwing it back in his face, and you're thinking, and she's got it right, she's clearly has a better understanding of what's going on than Tyrion does at this point. And I think that's a great, that really, everything else that's happened, that scene right there kind of catapulted her into, she knows what's going on. She's really come into her own.
She's come a very long way because in those first episodes of the show, you really can't stand her.
Yeah.
Even before you know how much of a monster Joffrey is, her alliance with him is pretty hard to watch. I mean, what do you think about Cersei? I think that, what are her motivations? She's basically just wants power. She doesn't care about anyone, it seems. And her relationship with Jaime is still there, but,
Well, is it, now that she's hired Bronn of the Blackwater to go kill them both?
Oh, right? Yeah, that's true.
So that scene was kind of crazy, too, because
she wants to be the last Lannister.
It's always been Cersei and Jaime, right? I mean, especially in the books, that's even a little stronger than what you get in the shows, but it's Cersei and Jaime. I mean, they were twins, they were inseparable as kids, they were almost indistinguishable. Obviously, their relationship, for her to take that step and say, I want you to go finish off my brothers, it's wow, that's crazy.
So cold.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't imagine her ending up with Euron Greyjoy. I just don't see that happening.
I don't see him surviving her either.
No. So yeah, I mean, who's she aligning herself with at this point? I mean, she's got the gold company that's just come over. She's got the Iron Fleet. She's got the Lannister troops. She's got the ghoulish mountain. But that's it.
Still there under his mask, but
but that's it. I mean, you're right. When she kind of signed Jaime's execution order, and I'm skeptical that Bronn's actually going to do that because I think he would prefer.
I think he likes Jaime.
I think he likes Jaime.
I think he likes Tyrion too.
Yeah, clearly.
And his allegiance. I mean, he just wants to get paid, basically.
Yeah.
And a few other things on the side.
Exactly. The other character to me that's really interesting and also really kind of difficult to figure out is Bran, right? Yeah. So Jon comes back and he hugs him and he says, "You're a man now." And he says, "Almost." What's that all about?
He's got some, weird wisdom. I feel like he knows what's going to happen. There is a theory out there that he's the Night King. Obviously, his story has been so closely linked with the White Walkers that he seems to be on a path with them of some sort. So I think he can see the future. I mean, that's pretty clear. So I think he's going to play a very important central role in all of that. I really do. I'm curious what's going to happen with Arya. I mean, she's back home, but just a few seasons ago we saw her in the darkest times, and she was undergoing all of these trials and was blind, and now she's sort of back to herself, but has this absolute ability to just
Yeah.
massacre people. And so she's a very different character now too.
But would that prepare her for, right? I mean, she didn't go through all that for nothing,
For
right?
nothing, right.
Clearly, the reason she went through all those trials, I mean, Sansa went through everything to make her stronger and make her to who she is now, the leader she is now. Arya went through all these things for different reasons. Like, she does not want to be the Lady of Winterfell. But what is she? Like, I think the theory is, especially now that she's got the Valyrian steel dagger, which can kill White Walkers, is that she might be the one in the last showdown with the Dragon King, or excuse me, with the Night King. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I did think it was interesting when she reunited with Jon. Like, she shows him Needle, which of course he gave to her, and he pulls out, his sword, and he's like, "Oh, check this out, Valyrian steel." Jealous, and she's like, "No," and she's got a Valyrian steel dagger right there, and she doesn't whip it out and show him.
Yeah.
Like, I was kind of wondering why, but then she shows us to Gendry, and maybe they just figured we don't want to sit here and bore everybody. Like, everyone knows she's got it, but that just seemed like a perfect opportunity to be like, "No, I got one right here too."
Right.
Just to show him. Maybe he doesn't know that she's got it, and that's going to come into play down the road.
I feel like her siblings are never going to know the things that she's done or the things that she's gone through.
No. It is interesting, too, because these people come back together after not having seen each other in so long, and you almost want, like, she and Jon meet, and it's like, you almost want them to say, like, "This is what I've gone through." But, of course, you can't sit there and rehash it all. But, like, you sit there in your mind, and it's like, well, Arya's done this, 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 and this. Well, I guess Jon's done this, this. And same when Sansa and Tyrion meet. I mean, Tyrion's journey since that, Joffrey's wedding where Joffrey dies and Sansa leaves is incredible. But all of these characters have gone on these incredible journeys. They're coming back together. And, man, just to sit down in the Winterfell Great Hall at some point and hear them rehashing stories would be incredible.
To watch Tyrion in that first season, to go back to that season and watch him, like, he's so peppy and lively and sarcastic. And then eventually he's just completely broken down and destroyed. And he grows a beard, and which is always a bad sign. Sam, obviously he has some knowledge now and has played a big role. And he's at Winterfell with the rest of the gang now. So he and Jon are reunited. So obviously he's delivered the important message of Jon's lineage.
Yeah.
So that's going to be central. I think we have to weigh in on a couple of predictions. We'll go with the big one. Who do you think will sit on the Iron Throne at the end of the show?
So this is a tough one, clearly, and I'm almost of the opinion that the Iron Throne is going to be destroyed, right? Like, that they're
melted down into something.
Sure. I mean, who would want to sit on that anyways, right? You get poked. And
it looks uncomfortable.
Yeah, but I'm almost
hazard.
of the opinion that they're going to get to the end and realize that this has caused such strife and such, hatred over the millennial that they're not going to, like, the Iron Throne's going to be done away with, and I don't know if there'll be different leaders of different areas.
Maybe they'll just say, let's elect a president. Let's start the first ever democracy.
I don't see this season ending with someone, like, sitting down on the Iron Throne and, like, boom, final credits going. Like,
right.
To me,
because then everybody's going to be like, what now?
Yeah. So
we still have the same problem we started with.
Yes. I do think, if I had to go out on a limb, I think it might be some combination. This might be a cop-out, too, of Jon and Daenerys together.
I feel the same way, though. But I feel like their conflict, it's going to go one way or the other, right? But I feel like they can't coexist in the same place like that. I think they're too powerful to have together.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be smooth. I don't think they're going to be like best buddies all the way through, but I think at the end they're going to come back together and rule together.
Okay.
So that's my thought. What do you think?
I would say that I don't think Daenerys can end up on the throne. I think she's too powerful. And to mention Sam, I mean, just her delivering the news that his entire family was laid waste to by her dragons. She's pretty callous and cruel as a leader.
Yes.
And I mean, she's had such an amazing arc to come to this place of power from total vulnerability. Mm-hmm. But I just think that Jon has heart where Daenerys does not. Like, I feel like he has more allegiance to his family and to his home, and he values those things more.
So my thought is they balance each other, right?
Yeah.
If you put them together, you've got her on one side, him on the other, and perhaps they balance each other out and lead to maybe that kind of perfect fit, that as opposed to having one or the other. We'll see.
Something's going to happen, but
Yeah.
there's no way we'll be right about it.
No.
I guess another couple things I think we're going to find out later in the season that somebody who's been a major player in the plot turns out to be Arya. I think she's going to be in disguise throughout a good portion of this season, and then we'll be thrown for a loop.
You know, I never really considered that, but that's a great thought because, I mean, if she can pull off Walder Frey and, kill the entire Frey family, basically, that's awesome. That's true. I mean, and that's got to be, Sansa found those masks in her room. They're there for a reason, right? Who's that going to be? It's got to be somebody that's already dead, but maybe we don't know that. There could be a pretty significant twist somewhere along the line.
I think also we do not leave this season. This is a demand. We do not leave this season without a Cersei death scene. I think she has to go. And over the course of the show, too, they've sort of strayed away from showing the really brutal deaths. I mean, you're not going to get a couple thumbs and eyes and have a head ripped open you did in 3 or 4. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get that again, but I think we need perhaps a somewhat graphic death scene. We need to see her go.
And the predictions are they showed at the beginning of one of the seasons they showed her going and visiting the Wood Witch, who predicted that she would marry not the prince but the king and different things, and her kids would be golden crowned, which means they'll have gold hair, and basically they would all die, which kind of all this stuff's come true. But I think at the end, and I don't remember if this is in the show or not or just in the books, so spoiler alert if you haven't read the books.
Maybe we should have thrown a spoiler at the beginning, but I think
you
know what you're getting into if you're still here with us.
It's saying that her younger brother will kill her. People have kind of always thought it was Tyrion, but I think it might be Jaime. I think Jaime is going to get to the point where he realizes that she can't go on, and I think that's going to come down to Jaime and Cersei, and Jaime taking down his sister, which would be pretty crazy. I mean, when you look at Jaime, if you go back and rewatch the first season, was the foulest of all characters, right? I mean, pushes Bran out the window for crying out loud, and just Jaime's the worst of the bunch. And especially, you get that more, I think, in the books than you do in the show even. But for him to come around to where he's kind of endeared himself and is now kind of a character that people like is crazy that he has done it. And same with Tyrion. I mean, Tyrion wasn't quite as bad. Tyrion was just always kind of assumed to be bad because he was with the Lannisters, and he was kind of a smart aleck and had a big mouth and liked to kind of whore and drink and everything. But he never did anything other than shooting his dad with a crossbow. He deserved it, right? But Tyrion's kind of come along. But Jaime, to get to the point where we like Jaime now is crazy. And that scene last season where he's riding toward Daenerys with the spear and the dragon turns its head down, and it's like, oh, this is the end. Like, the fact that he's still alive kind of made me happy, whereas earlier in this show you would have been like, take him out, right? So I think
this show brings out, I think, the bloodlust in all of us.
Yes.
And that's what's fun about it. It really toys with your expectations, with it throws taboos at you and makes you adjust to the norms of the world.
So here's a question for you. Are we going to see the wolves again? So obviously Nymeria is still alive. We saw Nymeria in the last season sneak up with Arya, and then Jon's wolf still alive. We haven't seen him. But those wolves were such central figures. I mean, the first episode, they find the wolves. The wolves signify the Stark kids. So, and they've been there throughout the season, but all of a sudden we haven't seen them now for quite a while. Do you think that they'll come back into play?
I'm not really sure, but I guess it would be cool to see the wolves come back in. Maybe one of them is a White Walker wolf or something like that. Hate to say it, but yeah, I think they may come back in, but I am kind of skeptical that in this season we are probably not going to get a full closure to every character. I feel like a couple of characters that people love are going to get torched in a battle and it's a great tragedy for a whole bunch of characters we don't know about, and they'll just kind of be thrown into the mix of that. So I think we can probably expect that not everyone's going to have their own special scene.
I do feel like Nymeria, when she came back and saw Arya, and that was kind of like Arya said something to her and basically disappeared, and that was kind of the closure there. Like, okay, she's still alive, but I don't think we're going to see her. Ghost, I think Ghost has a role to play still because he was the runt, the one that they found last, kind of like Jon, like the kind of the outcast. But I think Ghost still has something to do. I mean, I really think that we need to revisit him at some point, have him play some kind of a role, whether it's in a battle and you just see him, but it just seems like he's going to be there at some point, maybe to save Jon from a different threat or something. I really hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too. One thing I hope doesn't happen is that as they're wrapping this show up, I hope they don't do any like major time jumps to say, oh, it's been 10 years since this great battle. Like, I think we can just wonder about what happens next. Like if they rebuild the world after some catastrophic events. Like I hope that that's kind of left to the imagination.
So you've referenced Harry Potter. I love the Harry Potter series. My kids love the Harry Potter series.
Me too.
They've read them 1,000 times. It's pretty much the greatest thing ever as far as literature goes for our generation is these Harry Potter books. But the worst part of it all is the end when you go 20 years later and Harry and Ginny are married and Ron and Hermione are married and they're different. Neville's a professor and it's so bad. I'm like, I want my imagination to take me there. I don't want you to take me there and kind of.
That's for like fan fiction, I feel.
Yeah.
Like, yes, they get closure. The characters get some closure, but I don't really care.
No.
Like, I want the Battle of Hogwarts to end, and yes, there were losses, there were tragedies, but it's Voldemort's defeated, and then we should be able to use our imaginations and just sort of imagine what happens next. And
yes,
and I don't really care to do that jump. A lot of shows have done this too. The show Weeds, I think it's a Showtime show. Basically, I don't know, it went 6 or 7 seasons. It's pretty funny, and then kind of trailed off. But I did stick to the end, and because I kind of wanted to know what happened. And the last, we'll spoil that one too. But the very last episode is like the characters like sitting in a restaurant, and then like the year, I don't know, 2050, like super off into maybe the 3000s, like somewhere off in the future, and like there's like weird like futuristic technology. It's like, this is not what the show is. I think that the people in charge of Game of Thrones know what their show is, know what their story is, and they're going to steward this into a good finale. And then after that, we're going to get some spin-off shows too. So we can go back to some of the history that's been alluded to throughout the show. So lots to look forward to.
And I'm okay with that as long as it doesn't turn into Jar Jar Binks in the Star Wars prequels, right? But
sure.
If we learn the history of the Stark line or the Targaryen
I think the trade
line,
war would work pretty well though in this world.
Don't even start. If I have to hear about the planet Naboo ever again, I'm not going to be happy. Who's the next major character to die? Do you have any feelings about that? I mean, we've got to start losing a couple of them.
Yeah.
There.
Before this episode, I was hoping that we would cold open with like a Cersei death, but I'm still going to say that she needs to go first. I think we need to go there. It's time.
Somebody major has to go. My wife and I actually filled out this little form that like you had to list
too. Yep.
all the people, like, so it lists all the major characters and you have to predict whether they're going to live or die.
Or whether they turn into a White Walker.
Yes, which is a whole other.
We haven't even gotten into that. So,
but one of the questions was who's the first one to die, and my pick was Yara Greyjoy, figuring that she was under control of Euron, and Deyoung was going to come try and rescue her, and that wouldn't go well. Well, little did I know that it would be like the most easy rescue ever. Like they shoot a couple of guys with bow and arrows and they're gone. I was kind of disappointed that they got away so easily.
It was rather stealthy.
And now she's kind of off on her own, and I don't think we're going to really see much from her anymore. I do feel like maybe like Tormund Giantsbane or Dolorous Edd or one of those guys, Beric Dondarrion, not quite major characters, but one of these guys, maybe even Jorah Mormont, somebody who's been with us for a long time but isn't maybe central to everything is going to go. Because I think there was a lot of criticism in the episode where they were stranded in the north and the dragons came and rescued them. And first, Tormund Giantsbane gets like surrounded and he's about to be eaten and someone pulls him out. Like the fact that they escaped that entire situation with no one dying other than like these people we didn't know. Jon falls into the water and is under there for 5 minutes and somehow crawls out, finds his sword and is able to pull himself out, and Benjen Stark comes and rescues him. Like, this show is famous because Ned Stark got his head cut off in the first season, right? People die. It is what it is. And all of a sudden now, like, you go through this giant scene, and other than a dragon, which was kind of devastating in itself, none of our characters died. Like, everyone made it through, and it just seemed to fly in the face of everything that this series has been about. Like, it's clear that nobody is safe, but all of a sudden, everyone makes it out. And I thought that was kind of disappointing. So I think, not disappointing because I want to see people die, but, just because that's what happens.
But you do. It depends on who they are.
Somebody's got to go.
There's some evil people in this show.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to the Hound and the mountain fighting, because if you remember back to like season 1, like in the joust, like they went at it, and Robert yells like, "Stop this!" and like
that has to have a closure.
Those two are going to go at it, and I'm hopeful that the Hound comes out on top, because he's another one who's a totally despicable character who you end up kind of liking.
Likable. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, he kind of took care of Sansa. He showed pretty early that he had a soft side, despite chopping down the Butcher Boy early on and incurring Arya's wrath. So,
to just bring in Lord of the Rings again, though, this is sort of the opposite of that in terms of all the deaths, because in Lord of the Rings, there's kind of this idea of it's a Tolkien word of eucatastrophe, which is like basically the idea that, oh no, everything's going wrong, and then the eagles swoop in and save the day. Yeah. And that was sort of the grace of God or whatever in that world, right? But in this world, there's reference to the new gods and the old, but there's no active God in that world. No. It is ruthless and brutal, and people will die. Yes. And they will be sometimes remembered, sometimes forgotten. And that's all there is to it.
I mean, if you read Lord of the Rings, we get in the worst situation possible, and then we're saved. And then we go on and get into the worst situation possible, and we get brought back out of it, like every time, whether it's, Tom Bombadil saving them from the tree that's eating them by the river or whatever. I mean, there's just so many times when they stray off path, they get into a bad spot, and then they get pulled back into it. But this is, you're right, it's the opposite of that. It's like you stray off path, see you later, you're gone. Somebody's going to chop your head off.
I'm glad that you mentioned Tom Bombadil. Very, very nice. Great.
Very underutilized character.
Yes, underappreciated.
Yeah. So we will continue this through the next several episodes, hopefully a little earlier in the week as we get a little bit better at doing this.
Obviously, there's a lot of Game of Thrones fans out there, so we hope to just kind of join you in celebrating and speculating and being fans of it.
So obviously there'll be a spot in here to comment. So if you want to leave comments on what you think, some of the things you think we said that you agree with, some of the theories you might have that you think are, that we're maybe off base, or a theory you might have that you think we should discuss in a future episode, feel free to leave those, and let us know who your favorite characters are, who you really hope you see, around at the end, who you are hoping to see oft sooner than later. We'd love to see those theories, because it's so much fun just to talk about these shows and
absolutely
all the characters and the people that we've come to really, over how many years now, almost a decade of getting to know these people, from little kids to now these very mature characters. It'll be very fun to see where this goes.
I agree.
Well, thanks for joining us, and we will talk to you again next week.